It wasn't that long ago that the Carolina Panthers were sitting at 1-3, and fans were demanding that we fire Dave Canales, that Bryce Young was not going to be the answer for this team. And here we are heading into the bye week with an opportunity to get into the playoffs. Let's talk about it.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. I hope you guys are doing well. We are ramping up the content again as we have gotten through the football season on our side with the family, of course, but through the holidays, things are simmering down, but also speeding up. And so I've got a little more time on my hands, at least in the evenings, early mornings, to try to get more content out for you guys. And what a perfect time as the Carolina Panthers push for the playoffs. So coming off of yesterday's performance, there's a few things that I wanted to talk about today from the Dave Canales press conference just to get you guys up to speed. Panthers sitting now in the bye week. The biggest question that we are going to have is the status of players. Are they going to be able to come back? We are going to hope that we get Roseboom back, that we get Claude Cherilus back in the mix. We know Trayvon Merrick officially cleared to return following the suspension. Got a nice little week off. Worked out for him in a way. But let's talk about some of the injuries that happened during the game and the status of some of the guys. So Taylor Moton did miss a little bit of time with an oblique injury, but was able to return. So fingers crossed that things work out there for them. Lathan Ransom, who had a career day smacking people in the mouth all across the board. I guess he was smacking people too hard. He injured his thumb. It sounds like the team is currently evaluating this, the timetable. I don't know if it's broken. I don't know if it's a sprain or what exactly is going on, but I would be hopeful that Lathan Ransom would be able to continue to play. I mentioned J.C. Horn expected to return, going through the protocol. Like we said, same thing with Claude Cherilus. And then Robert Hunt, who is working on the return to play, slowly but surely starting to see him be able to work his way back, some arm strength, being able to manage what he would have to do on the offensive line going up against some big guys. So one of the questions that came up in regards to Robert Hunt was whether or not pushing him back and trying to get him back was going to depend on the Panthers record. So, are you competing for a playoff spot? And if so, you probably would want him back if healthy. But if you're out of the mix, you just let him sit. Dave Canales gave the PR answer, which I do believe that if and when he's healthy, he's going to play. And I do think that's the mentality of these guys. Now, if we're talking final week of the season, and let's hope this isn't the case, but the Panthers are not in the mix, and he's still kind of iffy, 50, 60, 70%, whatever it is, 80% even, I think there would be the possibility that we do not see Robert Hunt. But positive news, again, the Carolina Panthers are getting healthy at the right time. And you look at this team, there are still deficiencies. There's no doubt about that. Like, what we've seen out of the pass rush is not it, but overall coverage in the secondary has gotten better. Even though we are not getting sacks like we want to, we're still creating some pressure. Not a lot, but creating pressure, getting turnovers, and then the coverage down the field is able to do its job. Pretty good tackling across the board against some good running backs, being able to contain them. And that's what's helped. And you look at a team that coming into this season, we were like, how good can this defense be? And they have greatly improved. I said middle of the pack was the bar. That was the goal for me with the Carolina Panthers. And sure enough, they've gotten there. I don't know what awards can be made for assistant coaches in the NFL, but Ejiro Evero certainly should be in the conversation with what he has and what he has done with this defense. Like, I don't know what award you can give him, but I do now look at this situation as he's probably earned himself multiple head coaching opportunities this offseason, at least for to go through the interview process. And it's funny because you go back, and we've talked about this along the way this year, that you went from a situation where you're like, get him out. This is it. It's now having him here and finding that stability. So we'll see how it pans out. But the Panthers are sitting nicely. Now, looking across at the other notable pieces from Dave Canales, I think the biggest thing is the complementary football that they played. He still talks about this team not being able to play or not playing their best game yet. You saw the quote coming out from yesterday, and if you got a chance to watch the presser where Dave Canales spoke about us knowing the Rams football and how well they played, but we have not seen the Carolina Panthers' best football. And even the guys after the performance yesterday feeling confident knowing that they just beat the best team in the NFC. And I mean, we were borderline now. Patriots are a really good football team. There's some good teams in the AFC, but borderline talking about one of the best teams in the NFL falling flat in Carolina. And the Panthers have continued to slay these giants, and that should be enough. And I was thinking about that today. I know I've talked about the Panthers truly being here in the playoff hunt at 7-6 and having an opportunity, but thinking about the fact that they've beat these teams, I don't know where they're going to stack in power rankings. I don't care. Probabilities to make the playoffs should go up, but it's still a difficult path. But we have seen when this team plays the way that they can play, even short-handed on defense and not having your star players across the board, or at least a portion of them, you see that this team can compete with anybody. And that alone to me is positive news as a Carolina Panthers fan. One of the potentially overlooked pieces, and really two pieces for the Carolina Panthers that at least I have talked about, that I believed in early on in this process when things were getting a little bit bumpy, is Chuba Hubbard and Mike Jackson. I remember folks way back when, primarily Mike Jackson, that were not sold on Mike Jackson as a cornerback, feeling like, hey, this guy doesn't have it. Why did we bring him back? There were folks that thought he was a liability, and there's a lot of those people out there that did not believe it. It's in a similar vein to me and Trevin Wallace and having to eat my crow there because I didn't really believe in Trevin Wallace to the full extent. But in the case of Mike Jackson, I was sold. And I felt like Mike Jackson had enough for us. And sure enough, he has turned a corner, stepping into the role while J.C. Horn was out, and showing us that there's still a lot of good football there. And that pairing, when J.C. Horn does come back, sets you up with a really good secondary. It may not be one of the best secondaries, but we're talking top 10, I would say, within the NFL for the Carolina Panthers between that duo. Still some work to do at the safety position, but it's coming around. And slowly but surely, we are finding the pieces within this team. And we're looking at this, and I kind of posted this earlier today. You look at the draft class, really the last 2 years, but really this past draft class, as well as the free agent talent. It's not building blocks. It's past building blocks. We now have boulders. We have solid pieces, and wherever the Panthers end up finishing this season and how this thing goes, whether it's pick 15 or pick 25, they're going to be in a prime position to get a good football player and not have to nitpick to fill a particular position. We know there's going to be positions of need. There's still discussions about Moton, Timo, and I know he's going to be here, but lots of things to uncover and discuss once we get there. But when you have guys stepping up around you, it makes it a lot easier for Dan Morgan. And if we can continue to hit the way that we have, nice path forward. Speaking of path forward and players that were under the radar, Chuba Hubbard. Cannot say enough about him. When all this transpired, you heard Rico Dowdle in the locker room yesterday talking about Chuba Hubbard's work ethic, his professionalism, how he just knows how to perform, man, and put in the time, put in the effort, controlling what he couldn't control in the situation. Like, nobody wants to be benched. I mean, essentially, that's kind of what happened. He was battling an injury. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to help his team, but unfortunately just wasn't hitting the groove. And here we are late in the season, and we said, be patient, be patient, be patient. Don't think about trading him. Don't think about any of that. Like, this guy is the future of the team just by default of being under contract. Give it some time, because Rico, unfortunately may hit a wall, or Rico's going to slow down, or he's going to get injured. But that tandem duo between Chuba Hubbard as well as Rico Dowdle yesterday, and I guess people are calling it Chico now, I don't know. But that 1-2 punch really hit a gear that we haven't seen, and I think there's more there. You look at the production between both of these guys, really good amount of carries, and Dave Canales had a better and good a run game coordinator. They had a better game plan coming into this past game, coming off of the 49ers where you just didn't run the ball, but coming into this where not only did you run the ball 35 times with your backs, you had a plan in place to utilize the strengths of Rico, utilize the strengths of Chuba, and play off of each other. And it wasn't this, hey, let's rotate a series. Let's rotate a series. It was getting them in when needed. And I think that was a big difference. So for me, it's hats off. Hats off to Chuba Hubbard. Hats off to Mike Jackson. And while we're sending our hats off, why not throw in a hats off to Bryce Young, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. I think it's safe to say, no matter where you are on the spectrum of supporting or not supporting Bryce Young, that we are starting to see more of the good more often than not. Yesterday, setting a career high 147.1 passer rating, highest of his career, and only trailing Cam Newton's perfect game, which Cam had back in 2015. 75 completion percentage, 15 of 20, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And you look at the 2 touchdowns on 4th down, the efficiency, one for Dave Canales to have the guts and to call these plays, but for Bryce Young and Jalen Coker and Tedder McMillan to execute these plays. These were not short passes. These were deep throws. 2 passing touchdowns on 4th down with 10 plus yards. He was the second quarterback since 2016 to do that. And we continue to see the game-winning drives. 11 career game-winning drives, which has only been in the NFL since 2023. But since 2023, which is the most game-winning drives by a quarterback since coming into the NFL. And for me, when you look at Bryce Young and where he is and where he's going, I know there has to be a little more. Like, there just has to be. You can't live on the side of how far it can be when it's negative, and you can't live on the side of like how positive it can be at times and how much he can do. Got to find a happy medium and utilize the strengths that's there: the brain, the power, the knowledge of the game, his touch, his anticipation, the things that he does well as a quarterback. You have to be able to find those things and continue to capitalize on them. And then, hey, avoid a few of these sacks. He's going to grow. He's going to grow and learn the game as he goes. But he is in prime position now. And it's funny coming off of what we saw on Monday Night Football to this. I don't know that I would have expected it to be that good this week for Bryce Young, but it's there. And we're starting to see more of it. And we're going to need to see a lot of it down the stretch if the Carolina Panthers are going to have a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, they can really put an exclamation point on this, put a stamp on it, whatever, you look ahead, and I know a lot of Panthers fans don't want to look ahead, but you can now look ahead to the New Orleans Saints. Let's hope that the Panthers take care of business. I would hate to think that the Panthers come out of that with a loss at 7-7. Realistically, that you could win out and have a chance because you could pick up 2 games over Tampa, but not a position that I'd like the Carolina Panthers to be in, having to do that. I hope they do, as far as beating Tampa twice, but they've got a chance now as you look at this final stretch to put that exclamation point on this season and really go get it. Because I think that's if they come out and beat New Orleans, if Tampa stays above water like we think they probably will, there's a chance that you now have the Panthers squaring up against Tampa. And if they beat them head to head, taking over the division with 2 games to go. And I don't know what more you could ask for as far as being a Panthers fan this late in the year and having that right in front of you. It's very competitive football. So the story around Bryce Young, I think for me, and I've wavered, man. I think we've all wavered a little bit just watching this unfold. If you haven't wavered, good for you. If you're a big supporter, maybe you're not a big supporter and you're still wavering on the side of not keeping him. But I do think we're at a point where we decide that, yes, we should pick up that 5th-year option. I don't know that I'm sold on giving him the 200, 300, 400, whatever the number is going to be. I'm not really concerned about that. Whatever the number is, it's going to be what it is. But I think picking up the 5th-year option and just giving it a chance. Like, let's just see, can we get a full year of this version of Bryce? Now, if we go on a playoff run, if things look well, I think that's going to elevate it a little bit quicker. And you never know, man. These coming out of the 3rd year into the 4th year, always potential to go ahead and just lock him up or lock him into a really nice contract early on that's beneficial. But the game and the narrative speaks for itself. And then outdueling, of course, Matthew Stafford, MVP candidate that was coming into this game and just really rewriting history, right? We have not been this excited for a win, and who knows when. I mean, may have to go back to the 2015 season to think of a win that might have been as big as this, especially a home game for the Panthers that has legitimate chance. Now, path to the playoffs, the probabilities, all that, we know it's slowly creeping up. Analytics anywhere between 36 to 39% chance. The Panthers with a chance to win the division. We know Tampa's still the heavy favorite. They're going to be. The schedule is what it is. But I got to tell you, man, you're going against the Saints if you're Tampa as well, and the Falcons. That's not going to be a guarantee. Like, we know these division games, anything can happen. And if they slip up along the way, never know as we get there. So that is, as I go through my notes, and I believe that is all that we have this week, or I should say all that we have for today. Yeah, that's pretty much all we got, folks. So appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. We'll be back with more content later in the week. This is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.